Someone I respect really well said, if you have a hard time giving your testimony, then you don't realize how much you've been saved from. And I would have to say, as we kick this thing off, just Jennifer and I coming together and remembering all the things that we have been saved from. If you were in the message this morning, how dirty our past was, being enemies of God. If we were to rely completely on the law and following the law, woe be it to us. That would be a truly terrible fate. So we got to analyze and fight over how much we have been saved from. So it is a wonderful thing, and to God be the glory. I was brought up as a Christian and was trained under church history greats like Calvin, Augustine, and Luther. My mom taught me and my three brothers at home from our own homeschool curriculum called Konos that she wrote and sold around the world. The curriculum was heavy in biblical doctrine and church history. I can't remember a time when I was not taught about Jesus and TULIP, which is total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, efficacious grace, and preservation of the saints, for those of you who don't know. At the age of 12, I could have told you about man's dignity, total depravity, and justification by faith alone. I was baptized at 16, but somehow through all of that, I was not taught about love. I said I believed in Jesus, but I wasn't a new creature. In fact, the moment that I was not under my parents' nose, I found my way into sex, drugs, rock and roll. I had a rock band called Nuns on the Run, and that was my pursuit, which had nothing to do with nuns. It had more to do with running away from God, into alcohol and drugs, and then some more sex, drugs, and alcohol. I was lukewarm at best. I would even occasionally debate with people about the Bible while I slurred my words at Lucky Lou's bar down the street and loaded another bowl. I was the height of hypocrisy.
I was raised as a Christian as well. I really never knew anything different, and there was a ton of love in our house. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt how much Jesus loved me. Just before my 10th birthday, my dad died. And he left me and my mom and my younger sister. And the three of us grew very close during this really difficult time, and I'd say codependent even. The loss of my dad and the codependency with my mom and sister would shape who I was about to become.
I can't hear you back.
Okay. Some years later, I started looking for validation from guys, someone to fill that protective fatherly role, and I thought someone who would give me unconditional love. I had two older brothers, but they were much older and they were off on their own, so they really weren't there for me with that. These guys who I would attach to were thinking about only one thing, and I fell into the trap of trying to please them in exchange for their attention. They'd eventually move on, and my issues of abandonment grew. Afraid it would keep happening, I kept giving these guys what they wanted, not realizing that each time a piece of me was dying in the process. I never turned to Jesus during that time. Never once sought after his love and acceptance, which I had been taught, and I struggled majorly with abandonment and fear.
I was not truly reborn until after attending a men's conference here at DBC in 2011, which was all about a man and his Bible. It was after listening to one of the great preachers of our day, Tommy Nelsor, that I began to pick up my Bible and read it every single day. I began to have a prayer life, and before I knew it, I started to look forward to my time with the Lord, getting up earlier and earlier to spend more time with him. I found an unknown thing that had merely been words until this time, a relationship with God, a truly marvelous, intimate understanding of who God was and how much he loved me. He saved me in my pride and in my selfishness.
My turning point came in 2009. I'd been married to a very abusive man, and when I say abusive, I mean in every sense of the word. And we had been married for almost 5 years. He and I had met in the church, but I learned that church was all just for show with him. I didn't know it at first, but he was not actually a believer. It was a very difficult marriage. I was overlooked, and I got left behind a lot, and it didn't matter what I did to try to please him. It was never enough. One day I got a call from him saying that he was not coming home, and I found out that he'd been having an affair and that many affairs had been happening in our marriage since the beginning that I hadn't been aware of. And I never saw him again, and 2 weeks later, he served me with divorce papers. So like Tommy said this morning, here was my holy ground. So began a very difficult 6-month journey of divorce. It took us 6 months. And we had no children, no belongings, nothing. I had to come to grips with the ultimate abandonment of someone who vowed before God, I thought, to love and protect me for his entire life. So finally, I fell into Jesus' arms. And with the support of my mom and my sister, I found myself again in the Lord. And he began the long and hard work of healing me and making me a new creation. I prayed without ceasing. I was in the Word every single day, and I found the strength in him that I'd been looking for. God was fixing me, and I felt for the first time ever that unconditional love that I'd sought after for over 2 decades after the loss of my dad. And I was joyful, and I came alive again.
So God had brought us both into a relationship with him before we ever met each other. It's pretty awesome. We weren't looking. We found each other because we found him first. Jennifer and I met on the internet. That's right, as in the www, kind of like Sleepless in Seattle.
Not really. It was really more like you got mail. Rhett's dad and I worked together through email, and I bought space in a magazine that he sold space in. And one day I was living in Seattle, and I mentioned that I wanted to move away from there. And he quickly perked up and was like, "Ooh, let me suggest Texas, and would you like to meet my son, Rhett?" And I was like, absolutely not. We had lots of emails back and forth, and one day my boss was sitting across from me, and she asked why I was laughing. And I told her about this crazy guy in Texas who was trying to set me up with his son. And she looked at me and she said, "The Lord works in mysterious ways, Jennifer. Don't you close the door he might be trying to open for you." So I let Rhett's dad have my email address. It's your turn.
My dad said to me, "There's this girl that I work with that I want you to meet." And I said, "Well, do you have a picture of her?" And he said, "A picture of her?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, she could be some 70-year-old construction worker in a trailer. You never know with the internet. Can't trust the www." So Dad sent her picture, and I said, "Oh yeah, she'll do. I can work with this. Give me her email now." So from there, I sent her the first email, and I said, "I've never done this before. I'm not really an internet dater. But I guess I'll start with, with some questions." I think I asked her, "Here are some basics. How do you eat an Oreo, and have you ever shot a gun?" And then she asked, and then I asked her, "So my last question is, do you have 15 cats?" And the reason I ask if you have 15 cats is you're very pretty, single, and I can't understand how you're this old and not married with kids.
I told him...
I'm not done.
Oh, sorry.
So are you the crazy cat lady on the street? Admit it.
I told him no, I didn't have 15 cats. I actually had 16, and I was totally the crazy cat lady on the street.
Not cool. I thought, oh great, now she has my email.
But I straightened it up, and I said, "No, I don't have any cats, but I have a dog, and I have been married before." And then I asked him who his favorite Lord of the Rings character was.
I said, "I don't really know. I'm not really a Lord of the Rings nerd, but I think we just figured out who is."
So from there, our relationship was emails and phone calls and text messages, and we had no physical aspect to our relationship, so we really got to know each other well through this communication.
She was smitten. I was in love. 1 month after the first phone call, I flew up to Seattle to finally meet her and her mom and her sister. Then she flew down to meet my family. A couple weeks later, we both knew that this was it. After all, she told me that the Lord had told her that she was going to be with a children's minister, and I had at this point turned my punk rock band into a rock band for kids. So that pretty much sealed the deal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So 3 months after we met, I took a huge leap of faith, and I moved to Texas to be with Rhett. And I left all the safety and security of my mom and my sister, left them up in Seattle. We both prayed, things lined up, like my job allowing me to work remotely. And we both felt the Lord's direction, and I jumped, and I landed right in Texas.
Yeehaw! Now we're both in each other's company daily, physically. Yeehaw! Now, we'd like to stand up here and tell you that we fought the fight, fought every urge, resisted every temptation, and won the battle against sexual impurity. But we wouldn't want any of you to, the lightning to miss us and hit you, so for your safety, we're going to tell the truth up here. Is it possible for a man and a woman to submit to the will of God and yet fall victim to worldly temptation and fleshly lusts, and to top it off, lie to their pre-marriage counselors about it? Yes, it happened to us. Shamefully, but truthfully, we did not win that fight, and I will answer to God for that.
After 3 months of me living in Texas, Rhett asked me to marry him. 3 months after that, we had a huge wedding, which we went into debt for. We paid it for ourselves. And this would play itself out in the very near future.
I bought Jennifer a new home. We moved into it. I brought her to my roach-infested bachelor pad, where the neighborhood cats would come and have cat fight club underneath the house.
Yeah.
First rule of cat fight club is meow, 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 meow.
That's married trial number one, like day one, trial number one.
We had roaches so big that Jennifer would say, "Hey, would you mind going to get some butter from the store?" And the roach would be like, "And pour me a cup of coffee before you go."
It was so bad.
Huge roaches. So what happens when an unorganized, creative, free spirit moves in with an organized, methodical OCD individual?
Can you tell who is who?
I know what you're thinking. Pure bliss. But you'd be wrong. In some ways, it was complete harmony.
Sure, yeah. Rhett introduced me to a lifestyle that I had never known. Carefree, all about fun, no structure, no worry, and calendars were like placemats in his house.
Calendars were used for placemats in my house, that's true. Jennifer introduced me to a lifestyle I had never known. Structure, preparation, remembering to bring your swim trunks to a pool party.
We both loved what each other brought to the relationship at first. 2 months into the marriage, we found out that we were 1 month pregnant. Then, all of a sudden, part of who I was, the part that I'd buried really deep down inside, came to life. My anxiety and my sense of fear and abandonment came out in a controlling way, and Rhett took it as distrust. It was a side of me that he'd never seen before.
I felt like she didn't trust me, and to that it led me to seeing her as a nag, and she wasn't fun anymore, which was a huge drag. So I stopped wanting to make sacrifices for her, stopped really loving her the way that she needed to be loved, and my selfishness was back in full force. I didn't feel respected, she didn't feel loved. It escalated. I think it was pretty much that way the whole 9 months of the pregnancy with no resolution. Then Savannah was born. All our problems are gone.
Yeah. Savannah, our little girl, was born on in January of 2014. And I took maternity leave, so I brought in no money. And Rhett kept working at his 100% commission job, selling swimming pools. But he wasn't making the sales that we needed to make ends meet. So this added to my worry and anxiety and fear. We had very little income. We had no budget. We were struggling with our marriage. I didn't trust Rhett. I was a new mommy with a little life that I had to keep alive, and I was really busy trying to figure out how to take care of all of this on my own. Our fights got worse, and we were in a really low place.
Finally, we did the only thing that we could do. We got on our knees. We prayed. We asked for deliverance. I got in the Word every day. I was kind of falling out, but got back in it every single day. I made it a point to focus on God and focus on His will for our life. We dedicated ourselves to not missing another Sunday service and not to miss another MBF class.
I started to let go of some of my control so that Rhett and I could come together as husband and wife, united under God, to focus on fixing what was broken. And we turned to God, and He moved.
My old sinful habits, drinking that still continued on even after I had rededicated my life to the Lord, those things fell away, and God blessed me with the ability to never look back at the things that I'd struggled with before. I had tried to stop drinking before and had gone through months of it, but it was never like it was with God on my side. Just like Tommy talked about this morning, gave me that power to defeat those things. We turned to God, and He moved.
You want to read that word?
Titus 2:14 is Jesus, who gave Himself for us to redeem us from all wickedness and to purify for Himself a people that are His very own, eager to do what is good.
So I saw a change in Rhett, and I began to trust him more, and I really let up on the control. God was speaking to me, and I was finally listening to Him again. But then I heard God tell me something that I thought was completely insane. He told me that Rhett needed to quit his job. He said that Rhett was destined for greater things, and that those things were supposed to start right now.
Jennifer told me what God had put on her heart. I trusted her intuition, so I began to pray on my knees for a great length of time. It didn't take long, though, for God to reaffirm what she said. So one sunny summer day, I walked into my work. I gave my notice with no plans other than that I was going to quit. I quit with a brand new baby.
It was scary, but I had peace. I, of all people, actually had peace about this. We both did. And then came the next word from God. I had to quit my job too. Yeah. So we did what the Lord said, and now we have no jobs, either of us. No job.
We do now, but...
Yeah, well then. No job then.
And just to be real clear, I used to hear people talk about that they heard from God, and I thought, well, I don't hear this big, loud, audible voice. And it was just definitely put on our hearts. It was reaffirmed in prayer. We were on our knees. We spent the time not praying about this or that, but focusing on this one area. And He spoke through reassurance of what was the intuition was. I remember looking up to heaven one afternoon and saying, okay, God, this is it's your move. Raise your hand in here if you think that God left us alone, cold, abandoned, jobless, with our finger in the dam to fend for ourselves after we obeyed His direction, which by every uncertain term seemed ludicrous.
Anybody?
Raise your hand, we'll send you to the elders. Doesn't look like I've missed any meals. Here's where the story gets pretty interesting. The last pool that I sold before I quit my job was to a man and his wife who owned a company called Elios Community Care that did pediatric home health. They had a little ministry on the side that the company paid for called Elios Operation Inspiration. And before I knew it, Jennifer and I were sitting in their living room of this Christian couple who said that they felt like the Lord had brought us to them. They needed someone like Jennifer to fill the need in their company for a compliance officer, and with her detailed mind that if you cut her head in half, it would not be squiggly brain, but an Excel spreadsheet, I always say. Fit perfectly in. And then they also needed someone to find their place in the script. There we go. Thank you. And they also needed someone to head up this children's ministry that they had and encourage kids with love and inspiring words from the Word. And I said, I have a kids' rock band. I had actually met with my counterpart, Nathan, the other guy in the band, 3 weeks earlier, and both of us God had brought to both of us separately, and we came together. He said to me one day as we were playing golf, like, I really feel like we ought to quit screwing around and use this band for God's glory. And I said, that's crazy. I felt the same thing. We had no idea how we were going to do that, but he had placed those seeds in both of our lives. It was totally awesome. We should use our talents for his glory, but didn't know how, and then here we go.
Yeah, what's really amazing is I was still getting my last paycheck from the other job, and Rhett still had pool money coming in, so we were never without a paycheck between this time. And I finally got my children's minister that God had promised me. The job they offered me was a results-based schedule, full benefits, and they'd let me stay home and raise my daughter, Savannah.
God didn't simply bless us. He blessed us in a way that could only come from him. He brought us to Brenda Haley, who got us on a budget that is eliminating our debt and got us in a position to where we were able to move out of the roach house. Yay! And the roaches are like, come back. He blessed me with a job that is an absolute dream job, using all my talents and for his glory, doing exactly what I love to do. And he blessed Jennifer with a dream schedule for a job so she could stay home with our daughter but still contribute to the bottom line. When we trusted in him, it removed the limit that we were putting on how much he could work in our life. And once the limit was removed, his limitless power was unleashed.
Since then, he has taken away every ounce of abandonment issues, and I don't have fear anymore. I can't say I've relinquished all control on everything, but I've gotten noticeably better. All I've ever wanted to be is a wife and a mommy, and God gave me that gift. This is my ministry right now, is taking care of my family, helping to teach Savannah about Jesus and his love for her, and being Rhett's helpmate in the amazing ministry opportunities that he's led into.
Romans 8:38 and 39, for I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. After watching the Lord literally work miracles in our life, God has given me a new passion for his work beyond the children's ministry and Rockin' with Rhett. He has given me an incredible drive to street evangelize, to challenge others in their walk with God, to lead Awana worship on Sunday nights, and more recently to go through BTCP this May. We joined a small group where we've made incredible friends and have a wonderful support system. We're table shepherds here at MBF and grow spiritually each week because of each of you who contribute to amazing conversation and challenge us in our walk. And we're doing 6 weeks with a son, Rhett Jr. We get another glorious opportunity to add to our quiver.
Things aren't perfect, and they never will be until we go home. But the Lord has delivered us from so much, everything from addictions to abandonment. I'm still working on some anxiety things and being overwhelmed, and honestly coming to terms with the fact that God's timing is not my timing. This pregnancy was not my timing, but all I have to do is look back and see where we've come from, see all the blessings that we've experienced and the places from which we've been delivered, to always see that God's time and that we've been delivered. Oh gosh. We've experienced, and all the places from where we've been delivered were always in God's time and in his hand. And that's helped me to see, even if only for a few moments at a time, that his timing is the right timing.
A good friend of mine once said that if you have a problem in your life, you don't have a you problem, you have a God problem. Meaning the problem you're having is not because you are not smart enough or prepared enough. The problem is your inability to allow God to move. That your lack of faith limits his limitless power, and as a result leaves you alone to fend for yourself. There is not a single doubt in my mind that Satan attacked us from the get-go. And we lost the battle several times on our own, and our sin only complicated our relationship. It took reaching the end of ourselves to realize that all it took was turning to God and falling at his feet and obeying to see his miraculous timing and blessings. Just like Moses, prepared from birth, nursed by his mother, raised by the princess, taught classically in the safety of the palace, given authority in Egypt and a birthright with the Israelites, with all of these preparations, fell into sin, anger, and murder. He came to a place where all of us come when we are through running on our own, covered in our own sin. He came to the well. He came to God. He came and God met him there. But God had been there the whole time. He had prepared him, just like he prepared Jennifer and I, with our strengths and our faults in order to learn how to lean on him when they conflicted. We have many more battles to fight and many more lessons to learn, but we do not intend on ever doing it alone again. This is my favorite verse in the Bible, John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome this world. Thank you.